The studio lights burned hot, casting sharp shadows across the set of Real Time with Bill Maher. The audience, a mix of eager fans and skeptical onlookers, buzzed with anticipation. Tonight's episode promised fireworks, and the air crackled with it. Bill Maher, leaning back in his chair with that familiar smirk, scanned his guest panel. His eyes locked on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a rising star known for her fierce defense of economic justice. She sat upright, her gaze steady, hands folded tightly in her lap. The crowd sensed the storm brewing. Maher wasted no time. "So, Jasmine," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "you're out there preaching about wealth taxes and free health care like it's a fairy tale. Don't you think all this passion of yours just clouds the real work of governing? I mean, come on, you're selling dreams to voters who want magic wands, not policy." The audience gasped, some chuckling nervously. Crockett's jaw tightened, but her eyes blazed. She leaned forward, her voice low and cutting. "Bill, you sit there acting like you've cracked the code on governing, but all I hear is a man, scared of ideas bigger than his ego. I fight for people who can't pay their bills while you mock them from your cushy chair." The crowd roared, split between cheers and boos. Maher's smirk faltered, but he doubled down, his tone sharper. "Now, oh please spare me the sob stories. You think shouting about fairness makes you a leader? It makes you loud, not right. Governance is about numbers, not feelings, sweetheart." The word sweetheart landed like a slap. Crockett's face hardened, and the audience fell silent, sensing the shift. She pointed a finger at him, her voice rising but controlled. "Don't you dare patronize me, Bill. You think you can dismiss me because I care? Because I fight for folks you wouldn't cross the street to meet? Your numbers don't mean a thing when people are starving." Maher scoffed, crossing his arms. "Starving? That's dramatic. You're playing to the cheap seats, Jasmine. This is why your ideas don't work. You're too busy grandstanding to think straight." He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Stick to the script, or you'll crash and burn like every other idealist who thought they could change the world." The audience held its breath. Crockett didn't flinch. She matched his stare, her voice steady but laced with venom. "You call it grandstanding, I call it truth. You're so busy tearing down people with hope that you've forgotten what it means to stand for something. Keep hiding behind your jokes, Bill. They won't save you when I'm done." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Maher's face twitched, caught off guard by her intensity. He opened his mouth to retort, but Crockett wasn't finished. She leaned back, her eyes never leaving his, and began to dissect his argument with surgical precision. "You say my ideas don't work? Let's talk about your so-called practical solutions. Tax cuts for the rich, deregulation for corporations. How's that working out for the average family, Bill? Tell me, since you're the expert." The audience erupted, some clapping, others shouting. Maher's composure slipped, his voice rising. "Don't twist my words. I'm saying you can't just throw money at problems and call it policy. You're naive if you think that's leadership." Crockett smiled, but it was cold, dangerous. "Naive? I'm not the one pretending cynicism is a personality. You're scared, Bill. Scared that people like me are done listening to your tired excuses for why the system can't change." She paused, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You want to talk numbers? I've got some for you." The crowd leaned in, hanging on her every word. Maher's eyes widened, sensing a trap, but he couldn't back down now. The stage was set, and Crockett was just getting started. The studio air grew thick, the audience's murmurs fading into a tense hush. Jasmine Crockett's last words hung, like a blade, her promise of numbers daring Bill Maher to respond. His smirk was gone, replaced by a tight scowl as he shifted in his chair. The crowd's eyes darted between them, sensing the fight was about to turn uglier. Crockett didn't give him a moment to recover. "You want to talk practical, Bill?" she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Let's talk about your kind of practical. You cheer for policies that let corporations dodge taxes while regular folks scrape by on wages that haven't budged in years. You call that governing? I call it selling out. She leaned forward, her gaze unrelenting. Give me one example, just one, where your ideas helped a single mother pay her rent. The audience erupted, cheers mixing with gasps. Maher's face, flushed, his hands gripping the desk. Don't lecture me, he snapped, his voice loud now, almost a shout. You think you can waltz in here with your righteous act and shame me? I've been calling out bad ideas longer than you've been in Congress. Your plans, free this, free that, they bankrupt the country. You're not a hero, Jasmine. You're a dreamer who can't add. Crockett's eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed calm, venomous. Can't add? That's rich coming from you. Let's do some math, since you love numbers. Last year, the top 1% got tax breaks that could have funded health care for millions. You backed that, didn't you? Nodded along while families lost their homes. And you have the nerve to call me a dreamer? She shook her head, her tone dripping with disgust. You're not practical, Bill. You're just loyal to the wrong people. The crowd roared, some standing now, their shouts drowning out Maher's attempt to interrupt. He slammed a fist on the desk, his voice rising. Over the noise. Enough. You're twisting everything. I'm not the bad guy here. You're the one pushing fantasies that'll crash the economy. You want to help people? Stop yelling and start thinking. Crockett laughed, a short, bitter sound that silenced the room. Thinking? I think plenty. I think about the people who work 2 jobs and still can't eat. I think about the kids who go to bed hungry while you sit here whining about my tone. You don't get to tell me how to fight, Bill. Not when you've spent years cozying up to the same system that's crushing them. Maher's eyes flashed with anger, but there was something else. Panic. He leaned closer, his voice low and mean. You're out of your depth, Congresswoman. You think you can bully me on my own show? Keep talking, and you'll look like a fool in front of everyone. The audience gasped, the insult landing hard. Crockett didn't blink. She tilted her head, her voice steady but fierce. Bully you? I'm just telling the truth. You're the one throwing punches, hoping I'll back down. But I don't scare. Easy, Bill. You want to talk fools? Look in the mirror. You've built a career on tearing people down, but you can't handle it when someone fights back. The crowd was on its feet now, their cheers shaking the studio. Maher's jaw clenched, his fingers tapping the desk as he struggled to regain control. You're good at speeches, he said, his tone icy. But speeches don't fix anything. You're all talk, Jasmine. No substance, just noise. Crockett's smile was razor-sharp. Noise? That's what you call it when someone speaks for the people you ignore? Fine. Let's get to the substance, since you're begging for it. You say my plans won't work. Let's talk about yours. Deregulation, trickle-down economics. Where's the proof it helps anyone but the rich? Go ahead, Bill. Enlighten me. The audience leaned forward, their silence deafening. Maher opened his mouth, then closed it, his face a mask of frustration. Crockett had him cornered, and everyone knew it. She didn't let up, her voice rising with quiet fury. Nothing to say? That's what I thought. You're not smarter than me, Bill. You're just louder. But not tonight. The stage vibrated with tension, the crowd waiting for Maher's next move. Crockett sat back, her eyes locked on him, ready for whatever came next. The studio pulsed with raw energy, the audience frozen in their seats. Jasmine Crockett's challenge hung in the air, her demand for Bill Maher to justify his policies unanswered. His face was a storm of frustration, his fingers drumming the desk as he fought to claw back control. The crowd's silence was heavy, their eyes flicking between the Congresswoman's unyielding stare and Maher's faltering composure. He wasn't used to being cornered, and it showed. Maher forced a laugh, but it came out brittle, strained. You think you've got me, don't you? He said, his voice loud but unsteady. You stand there preaching like you've solved poverty, but you're just another politician with big words and no plan. You want proof my ideas work? Look at the stock market. Look at the jobs. You're too busy playing the victim to notice. The audience stirred, some booing, others murmuring. Crockett's eyes flashed, her voice slicing through his words like a knife. The stock market? Jobs? You're joking, right? Tell that to the factory workers laid off while your rich friends cash in. You think a rising market feeds a family? Bill? You're not just wrong, you're clueless. She leaned closer, her tone fierce and unforgiving. You sit there acting like you speak for the people, but you don't. You speak for yourself. Maher's face reddened, his voice rising to a near shout. Clueless? That's bold from someone pushing pipe dreams that'll tank the economy. You're not a savior, Jasmine. You're a loudmouth who thinks anger is a personality. Keep yelling. It won't make your ideas any less stupid. The crowd gasped, the insult cutting deep. Crockett's hands clenched, but her face stayed calm, her eyes burning with controlled fury. Stupid? That's all you've got? Name-calling because you can't keep up? I'm not here to play your games, Bill. I'm here to call out your lies. She paused, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. You want to talk anger? I'm angry for the people you dismiss. The ones you mock while you sip wine with millionaires? The audience erupted, their cheers shaking the studio. Maher slammed his hand on the desk, his voice cracking with rage. Don't you dare paint me as the villain. I'm the one asking hard questions while you dodge with sob stories. You think you can shame me into agreeing with you? You're out of your league, and everyone here knows it. The crowd's noise faded, every eye on Crockett. She didn't move, didn't blink. Her voice came slow, deliberate, each word heavy with purpose. Out of my league? No, Bill. You're out of yours. You've spent years hiding behind your smug little jokes, thinking no one would call you out. But I see. You're not a truth-teller. You're a coward who picks on the weak because you're too scared to fight the powerful. The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Maher's mouth opened, but nothing came out. His eyes darted to the audience, searching for support, but they were riveted on Crockett. She leaned back, her voice steady, commanding. You want to know why I fight? Because I know what it's like to be counted out, to be told you don't belong. But I'm here, Bill, and I'm not going anywhere. You can't bully me. You can't shame me. And you sure can't stop me. The audience held its breath, sensing something bigger coming. Maher, desperate now, leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. You're all talk, Jasmine. You think you're tough? You're nothing. Just another loud voice that'll fade. When people see you can't deliver. Crockett's smile was ice-cold, her eyes locked on his. She spoke, her voice clear and unshakable, each word a hammer striking stone. You call me nothing? I'm the voice of everyone you've ignored, Bill. And here's the truth you can't handle. My fight outlives your noise. The audience froze, stunned into silence. Maher's face went blank, his mouth half open, no retort ready. The studio felt electric, every person feeling the weight of Crockett's words. She'd landed her blow, and it was devastating. The silence in the studio was deafening. Jasmine Crockett's words, "My fight outlives your noise," echoing in every corner. Bill Maher sat frozen, his usual quick wit buried under the weight of her truth. The audience, still as statues, waited for his response, their eyes wide with awe. Crockett's gaze never wavered, her face a mask of quiet strength, daring him to fight back. The air felt alive, charged with the power of her stand. Maher cleared his throat, his voice hoarse, struggling to regain his footing. You're good, I'll give you that, he said, but the words lacked their usual bite. He leaned back, forcing a weak smile. But don't think you've won anything. You've got your moment, Jasmine, but moments fade. People forget. You're still just shouting into the wind. The crowd stirred, some booing softly, but Crockett's laugh cut through the noise, sharp and fearless. Forget? Oh, Bill, they won't forget this. You think you can brush me off like I'm nothing? I'm not here for your approval. I'm here for the people who heard every word I said. She turned to the audience, her voice rising with conviction. They know what's real. They know who fights for them. And it's not you. The audience exploded, their cheers thundering through the studio. People leapt to their feet, clapping, shouting her name. Maher's face twitched, his hands fidgeting. On the desk. He opened his mouth to speak, but Crockett wasn't done. She stood, her presence commanding the room, her voice steady but fierce. You called me loud, Bill. You called me naive. But you know what? I'd rather be loud for justice than quiet for your comfort. You're not the gatekeeper here, not anymore. Maher's eyes narrowed, his voice low, almost a growl. You're cocky, Congresswoman. You think this little speech changes the world? You're one voice. One. You'll burn out, and I'll still be here, asking the questions you can't answer. Crockett stepped closer, her voice calm but piercing. Burn out? You don't get it, do you? My fire comes from people who've been ignored too long. From families you've never met, struggles you'll never know. You're not my judge, Bill. You're just a man who's run out of tricks. She paused, her eyes locking onto his. And deep down, you know I'm right. The crowd roared again, their applause shaking the walls. Maher's shoulders slumped, his smirk gone for good. He looked at the audience, then back at Crockett, his voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you've got a point, he muttered, the words dragged out of him. But don't expect me to clap for you. Crockett smiled, not with warmth, but with triumph. I don't need your applause, Bill. I've got theirs. She turned to the audience, raising a hand, and their cheers grew louder, a wave of support that filled the room. She sat down, her posture relaxed but regal, the victor in a battle Maher hadn't seen coming. The host tried to move on, his voice shaky as he shifted to another topic. But the moment was hers. The audience's eyes stayed on Crockett, their faces lit with pride, some wiping tears. She'd spoken for them, for everyone who'd ever been dismissed, and they felt it. Maher's barbs, his smugness, his years of tearing down others, they'd crumbled under her resolve. As the show ended, the crowd gave Crockett a standing ovation, their voices a chorus of gratitude. She nodded, her expression soft but proud, knowing she'd done more than win an argument. She'd shown what it meant to stand tall, to speak truth, to fight without fear. Maher watched in silence, his usual swagger replaced by something new. Respect, grudging but real. The studio lights dimmed, but the energy lingered. Crockett's words, her fire, her unyielding spirit. They'd left a mark that wouldn't fade. The audience carried it with them, inspired, ready to cheer for a voice that refused to be silenced.